Hi, everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. And as 2023 is wrapping up, I want to take a moment to be thankful for all the opportunities we had of recording discussions with people from telecommunications, accounting, and IT sector. Now, as the year is wrapping up, we wanted to get someone who has more of a political background. Today, we are very thankful for such an opportunity of having Yasir Naqvi with us in the studio. He's a member of the Ontario Liberal Party, and he's a member of Parliament as well. So, in the upcoming conversation, we'll get to talk to him about his professional journey and what are some of the key reflections that really boosted that confidence in him that he really has made the right choice in choosing public service as a career choice. Yasir, thank you so much for being here with us today. First of all, before we get started, tell us how had your day been so far?
Well, thank you, Usama, for having me. I'm very fortunate and grateful to you for giving me the opportunity. My day has been great. It's the last day, sort of business day of the year in many respects. So just a lot of tidying up things at the office, making sure that last bit of gift shopping is done, especially for my children. So yeah, it's a easy, slow day. I'm a runner, so one of the things that I try to do every single day is go for a run. And so today I took a little longer run, so I'm feeling very good.
Nice. That's very good to hear. So first of all, since I've heard your story about the origins of how you got into politics on a lot of other platforms, but today I want to talk a little bit about how the journey is going so far for you. Like, yes, you had a very profound story about the origins of how you developed an interest in politics, but after being in this field for such a long time, what are some of the experiences that really strengthened your confidence that you really made the right career choice for yourself?
Well, so I will start by saying that politics is not a career. I'm a lawyer by profession. That's my career. Politics is public service, and I got into politics to serve my community. I represent downtown Ottawa, as you mentioned in your introduction, and my focus, of course, is to work with my community on behalf of my community to be able to champion issues that are important to my community. And so you do this for a period of time, not forever. And the decision as to how long you do it is really in the hands of the people. There's one thing certain in Canadian context, that there's always going to be an election every 4 years, and then people get to decide whether you've done a good enough job or not. I have, in my time in politics, I've served both at the provincial level and at the federal level. I have won elections. I've also lost an election, and so I know what that process looks like. So I've had an incredible time being a public servant, being a politician. That's why I've put my name on the ballot. Even after losing an election, I ran again at the federal level because I felt that there's still things that I can contribute for my community, and I feel very fortunate that they've given me opportunity to serve.
Yeah, that's good. And now talking about the responsibility that comes with the role, since we are diving into this conversation from a very career-oriented perspective. So I want you to share a few words about people who aspire to be in politics, who aspire to serve people and their communities. What are some of the responsibilities that come with the role when you are in politics?
Yeah, so I can tell you that everyone who gets into politics, in my view, gets in for all the right reasons. They do this because they want to serve. They feel that they have ideas that will make the community better, that they can champion issues in far more effective way. The people in the end of the decide who's elected, but I do really believe, and I've had many competitors that I've fought elections against. I've worked with members of parliament, or I have worked with members of provincial parliament who come from different backgrounds, from different political parties, that in the end of the day, all of us believe in one purpose, which is to make a country better, to make a community better. Our ideas may be different as to how to accomplish that, but the end is the same. The means may be different. So I have felt really fortunate in terms of working with community members on issues, that have helped me guide in being a better advocate, a better champion for my community. I worked with experts on very important issues to understand how government can make things better for people, whether it's healthcare, whether it's housing or education. You can go through myriad of issues, and then colleagues who work with you. I have had the opportunity in my career to be a backbench member of parliament, and I've also served as a minister, a very senior minister. And each of those roles come with different responsibilities and different tools through which you can affect change.
Right. And now taking this a step further, tell us a little bit about the roles that you've previously taken leading up to the role that you're in right now.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm a lawyer by profession. So I started my career as a lawyer. I practiced law for several years, which I really enjoyed, and I still am a lawyer. I don't practice actively, but eventually, sometime in the future, I may go back to practicing law again. I started my career in politics as a member of provincial parliament. I was first elected in 2007 from the riding of Ottawa Centre, and I served from 2007 till 2018 in that role. First part of about 5-6 years was as a backbench MPP. I was appointed as a parliamentary assistant to work with various ministers in various different roles. But in 2013, I was made a cabinet minister. I first served as the Minister of Labour in Ontario. Then I was promoted to become the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services. And then as Government House Leader, in addition to being the Attorney General of Ontario, which is a very significant role in our government. So those are the various roles that I performed, sat on various cabinet committees. I was a member of the Treasury Board of Ontario. All these things may mean very little to our listeners, but these are very important part of the institutions where decisions are made, where all the different checks and balances are put in our system to make important decisions that impact your and my lives on a daily basis. I ran federally in 2021, and I was elected again as a member of parliament for the same community of Ottawa Centre, and I have been serving in that particular role since then.
Right. Another thing I want to ask you is that one of the fondest memory that I have of Canada is that once I drove from Ottawa all the way to Halifax and then back. And while doing so, I don't know if I'll ever get to do that again or not, but in doing so, I get to discover Canada at a very, very personal level. Instead of just flying over the skies, I got to experience a lot of different communities, a lot of different cities, and how the lifestyle of people was. And in that regard, I want to ask you that in your capacity, I'm sure that you would be going through so many different cities, so many communities, talking to people, listening to their problems, and listening to what they like as well. So tell us a little bit about how you found Ontario whenever you've been traveling around.
Well, so first of all, it's a gorgeous country, right? And it's a big country. I just recently have come out of an experience. I ran for the leadership of the Ontario Liberal Party. And in that process, for a year, I traveled Ontario multiple times, not just once, but at least 3 or 4 times. There are 124 ridings in Ontario, and I visited every single one of them. And I say this often, and I'll say this again, that it is a big, beautiful, and diverse province. Ontario is changing. The demographics of our province is changing, which is a good thing. There's some real issues where you are, and it's very unique in terms of its diversity, both in terms of people, but its geography as well. The challenges around in northeastern or northwestern Ontario, so I'm talking about Thunder Bay, or even north of that when you get to Kenora, or communities called Moonbeam or Kapuskasing. I mean, these are communities are so far away from where we are right now here in Ottawa area. And the challenges that people who live in those communities are so different. There may be some similarities, but how they manifest themselves and how it impacts people's lives are really different. You transport yourself on the southern end of the riding, and you get to areas like Chatham and Kent and Middlesex, those communities, mostly farming communities, very different type of issues that impacts people's life differently. And the real opportunity, I would say to you, as a politician, is to be able to draw on people's experiences, how they are facing challenges around healthcare, around education, around affordability, whether they have the opportunity to own or rent a home, and then finding solutions that will work for everyone. By virtue of the fact that we're so big, one of the big challenges and I think mistakes that I have learned that politicians make is that we try to create solutions and see if they can fit and work for everyone. And we tend to, of course, create solutions that work for major urban centers because that's where big bulk of the population is. But forget that they may not apply the same way in smaller communities. And this is where I think we decision makers have to be more nimble, more flexible, so to speak, where we address issues around, let's say, access to healthcare, access to a family doctor or nurse, and come up with solutions that would work in that smaller community or in a northern community or in a rural community versus how it will work in urban community. And yes, it's hard work. Yes, it may cost more money, but I think in the end of the day, the lesson that I've learned, coming back to the question you were asking, is that it's about people. And you need to make sure that regardless of where people live, they get the services they deserve as quickly as possible, closer to home, because they have the same right to access the services, and that we don't create a bias in our system that only helps those who live in large urban centers like Greater Toronto Area or Ottawa, and forget have a differential, let's say, standard or parameter for those who live in smaller communities.
Right. So other than that, before you started your career in politics, had there been any myths that got busted for you once you actually started executing in the roles that you actually eventually assumed?
That's a really good question. Whether any myths got busted or not, and I have to think about it. I was involved in politics for some time, even before coming to Canada. Before my family immigrated here, I had a very sort of front row seat to politics in the country of my birth, which is Pakistan, which is very different kinds of politics than how we do politics here in Canada. And then when my family and I came to Canada, I joined the Liberal Party since high school, and been part of campaigns. My very first campaign was in 1990, and we were in Canada not even 2 years at that point. So I had a fairly good understanding of how things are done. Of course, what I learned is how decisions are made. Is one thing to help people run for office and participate in politics from the outside, and it's totally different. Be the name on a lawn sign, be the name on the ballot where people are elected, and then you have a responsibility in serving people. And I would say to you, and I'm answering your question slightly different in a different way, is that one of the biggest lessons I've learned in politics is how you bring people together. You cannot make everyone happy. People will have disparate views, and I believe the role of politicians, of somebody in my position, is to be a good listener, is to really pay attention as to what people are saying and thinking about, and find ways to bring people together, find ways to bring those different point of views in one place, finding that common ground. It's easier said than done, but I will tell you that is the part of the job that I've always enjoyed. It was probably not as clear to me before as it is now once I've been in this role for some time.
But is this vision shared by other leaders as well, as you say? Because sometimes we do tend to notice that even in Parliament, things do tend to get a bit personal. It seems like they might be deviating from the topic. But like in general, I feel like all leaders, irrespective of which party they represent, they should have the debates in such a way without without just talking about someone's personality or someone's uh,
If I may quickly, you're absolutely right. It should never be personal. And we just live in a time where politics is being made personal, right? We often talk about the polarization that our society is going through at the moment. I think it's an impact of the pandemic that we've lived through, and we can have that separate conversation. But politics should never be personal. It's not about one individual and their views, especially in a democracy, right? This is not a dictatorship. This is not a one-person rule. This is a democracy, and a democracy is always a group of people coming together and making decisions. As I said earlier, it could be that that your set of ideas may be different, and that's totally okay. It is totally okay and healthy to debate the merit of an idea, to debate how to make a problem better, how to solve that problem. It should never be at a personal level. It should always be based on the issue that we're facing. Politicians are humans. We're not perfect. So, of course, we do sometimes fall. We do sometimes trip and make mistakes. But I'm always mindful of myself to remind when I'm speaking to my colleague from the other side, whether it's a conservative or a new Democrat or bloc, that I'm not speaking to the person, the individual, but more is talking about the idea, the problem that we're discussing, and be able to present in a cogent way as to how our solution is better than what they're proposing to do.
right. Um, let's talk a bit about personal branding, and maybe connected to what you described now. Because we are very, very, very much and very often reminded of creating a personal brand for us in our professional lives, and even in our personal lives as well. Like, what matters to us the most, what do we care about the most, and what not, and how we deal with situations. So, in that regard, share some words about the value of having a personal brand in someone's life.
Well, it's so funny. I mean, I've seen some significant changes in politics, and one of the big change is that your personal brand is far more of significance now than ever before. Before, politicians were not on social media. You were not always out there, and this is where branding really, really comes into play. I distinctly remember when I was first elected, as I mentioned earlier, in 2007, and I sat down with my team. I was the first time in politics, and I was new to politics, so was not as well known in the community or in Ottawa writ large. Nowhere close to how I'm seen today. And my team, the new team that I have built, sat down and said, okay, what's a strategic plan, essentially, so to speak, right? Like, what are the things that we want to accomplish? What did we promise during the campaign? And how we want to do that. And part of that strategic planning was the question around the brand. How do we want you to be known, Yasir? And in politics is very interesting because the person, the individual, is the product, right? Because it's your name on the ballot. Yes, you belong to a political party, and there's branding that's associated with the political party and slogans and ideas, but locally, really, the individual is the one who's at the epicenter of everything. And I distinctly remember I saying to my team, look, I want to be authentic, number one. I think that's always good advice for any brand. Be authentic, be who you are. And for me, that meant I want to be known as somebody who's really hardworking. And number two, somebody who did their really best. Whether or not they were able to get the results you were looking for, whether it's on an individual matter or a community issue, but I want people to say, yeah, but he worked really hard and he really tried his best, right? And so that's how we did it. We just, everything I to this day do is around those two particular principles. Is somebody who spends a lot of hours and good hours in sort of really thinking through issues and working on behalf of my constituents, but also somebody who goes to bat, tries their really, really best in a thoughtful manner, 9 out of 10 times we get the results we want. That one time or two times we don't. But people say, well, you did your best. So I think, again, branding, be authentic to who you are.
Nice. And now talking about yourself and the team you work with, do you have any cool traditions at work?
Cool traditions. Well, listen, I've got each members of parliament get to build a team and staff, and we have a small but mighty team of really hardworking people. I'm always reminded of the fact that yes, it's my name on the ballot, and I'm a public servant, but the people who work with me are also public servants because they are also serving the community on my behalf, and so. Again, keeping it real, keeping it respectful to them because they work also very, very hard is really important to me. Paying attention to small things is also has always been my thing. Just yesterday we got together for our holiday lunch as a team, and I had little cards and gifts for them. But the idea is just that everybody gets to relax. Celebrating people's birthdays, making sure that we have an opportunity to at least 2 or 3 times a year come together as a team where people can also express themselves. I've always maintained a very open door policy in my office, so any member of the team, regardless of whether they're the senior member or joined the team 2 weeks ago, feel comfortable in coming down and sitting down with me and be able to talk about issues that's important to them.
Yeah, you do sound like a good boss.
I try my best.
Nice. And now switching gears a little bit, I want to talk a bit about the education sector, since you've been involved in advances over there, and I've seen you attending events at Carleton as well. Tell us a little bit about the revolutions or maybe the cool changes that are coming into the education sector, at least in Ottawa and maybe in Canada in general. What would be your thoughts about it?
Yeah, listen, education system is quite near and dear to my heart. In our federation here in Canada, education is a provincial responsibility, and provincial government gets to decide pretty much all aspects of education from kindergarten all the way to PhD. In my leadership run for the Ontario Liberal Party, I put forward a very robust platform, policy ideas as to how do we really make our education system even more ready for the world we living in, the economy that we're trying to build. I'm of the view that in a place like Ontario, our human resources is our natural resource, right? We don't have oil underground in this province, and investing in our people, starting from the moment they go to become of school going age, till whatever age they want to continue their education, is the way you build this economy. So things like making sure that we have small classes so that kids can get the education they deserve and the attention they should need, regardless of their abilities, regardless of whether they have special needs or not, is extremely important. It is counterproductive when you've got 30, 35 kids in a classroom, right? Whether it's kindergarten or grade 9 or grade 10, because then our teachers are just basically stretched thin, and they would not be able to really pay attention to each child based on their own merit and help them grow. And that's, creating an education system that is individualized, so to speak, is, I think, one of the best things we can do. Similarly, when you get into a college or university framework, making it affordable, making it accessible. It is no longer sufficient just to have a high school diploma, right? In the kind of economy that we live in around the world, going to college or university is a bare minimum you need to do. It's become really unaffordable. It's become really expensive for people. How can we make it more affordable and accessible for people of all backgrounds, especially those who've not had a tradition of going to post-secondary education because of whatever circumstance in their life? So that has been a top of mind for me. And the last thing I will say is skills trade. You and I come from a culture, and I think many people, especially who come from professional class, we think that becoming a plumber or electrician or a bricklayer is something beneath them. Well, that's not the case. These are good paying jobs, and we need to present them as professions, just like lawyers and doctors and accountants and engineers. We need to find ways to encourage young people to consider going into skilled trades. And so, what role government can play in sort of breaking down those stigmas and barriers as well, because we need people who can build things as well. So I think these are some of the elements that I often think about when it comes to our education system. It's a system which is it's definitely better than many places in the world, but I think it can be far more better than what it is right now here in Ontario and Canada.
Right, that's cool. What's something that the world can learn from Canada? Anything constructive that comes to your mind that we are an example?
I think we can learn a lot from the world, also good and bad. The one thing for that I think we can really teach the world is how so many of us who come from different places in this world are able to live together. That harmony, that inclusive society that we have been able to build in Canada, I think is something that the rest of the world really looks at and says, look at all of you. Now, we're not perfect. We have our challenges. We're living through a very challenged time right now because of things that are happening in other parts of the world. And that has an impact on us because all of us come from different faiths, different cultures, different backgrounds, and we feel things that may be happening in the world differently. However, I think there's an opportunity for us because we are also each other's neighbors, because we are also each other's colleagues at workplaces or peers in school, that we can have a conversation at a different level than other people around the world. And how can Canada leverage that so that we can be the problem solvers or the peace builders in the world is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. So I think that's an important and unique element as to the kind of society we've been able to build and the work we're doing. I'll just share this last point. So in between politics, I got the opportunity to run a not-for-profit national foundation called Institute for Canadian Citizenship. It was created by our former Governor General Adrienne Clarkson and her husband John Rostensaul. A remarkable organization. They continue to do really good work. And one of the mottos that we lived by in that organization that has stuck with me is diversity is a fact, inclusion is a choice. We live in a diverse country. You don't have to, just look around, go to a shopping mall, and you'll see people from all backgrounds. But that's not sufficient. How do we create an inclusive society? How do we create a society that everybody feels like they belong, that they have a role, that their differences are understood, are appreciated, are celebrated, right? That it's not a point of division, but is a point that actually unites us, that we all are really, truly different. That's the choice. And government has a really important role to play. Our religious institutions have an important role to play. Our community organizations have a role to play. All of us have a role to play to make sure that we're taking the proactive step in building an inclusive society. I think that is one of the magics, a magic of Canada that we need to keep working at and fine-tuning because there will be challenges, but something that the world looks at and says, look at these guys, how they've been able to do it.
That's very good to hear. Yasir, what are some of the core values that you uphold in your life?
Oh, what are some of the core values that uphold in my life? I think you just have to be honest with people. I've got 2 young kids, and I always tell them about just to share whatever is in their mind, because I think if we are able to have honest, frank conversations with each other, we are able to understand each other better, and so that's something that I always aspire towards. The other thing is just trying your very best, right? We all have a capacity to make a contribution, hopefully a positive contribution, regardless of whatever level we are at in our lives. And for me personally, I try to encourage others is to find ways to make that contribution, that positive contribution, to look at ways to make things better. It's a value that I lived by, and I think that's why I'm in public service, is because I want to play my part in building my community, my province, my country a better place to live. And I love when I see people finding different ways. No one way is big or too small, but trying to make a difference in other people's lives.
Excellent. And as we're reaching the end of our conversation, Yasir, I want to ask you about two main things. What would be the legacy that you would want to leave behind for others eventually taking up your job? And then, second of all, any advice for young professionals early in their career, or maybe some people who are giving politics a thought that maybe they should join and serve their communities? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah. So on the legacy question, I never think of the work that I do in terms of legacy. I think all of us can leave a legacy behind. Again, doesn't matter whether we're in public service or just professionals. I live by the saying that if you're a camper, you probably know this, that you leave the campsite in a better condition than you found it, right? Like, do your very best, that when you move on to the next role or next responsibility, and whoever takes your role, that they're just starting at a higher standard, right? That you left it better, and they're picking up from there and making it even better. So that's, if I don't know if you can call that a legacy, but make sure that you've done something good. Make sure that you've set good example, and you're leaving it in good hands, and then that person will take it to the next level. In terms of my advice for young people who may be thinking of public service, please get involved. That's the only message I can give. And getting involved could be a different level, whether it's getting involved in politics through joining a political party, which I think we all should do because it's our democratic right here in Canada, whether getting involved with a charitable organization on a cause that is close to you, whether it's rights of women, whether it's helping food insecurity or income insecurity. Please get involved. All of us live busy lives. There's always 10 things that are happening, and out of those 10 things, 9 things we are behind schedule. Find time to help others. Find time to contribute, as we were speaking about earlier. I think that is the best form of public service, because what I have learned in my lifetime is that more I give, I get even more back. And we're interconnected somehow, and I think finding opportunities to help others is one way of doing public service. And politics is noble. It's about making decisions that impacts all of us. I really believe that our democracy is as strong as people who choose to get engaged in it. If all of us stop voting, or all of us stop running, then somebody else will take the role. Very few people will make the decision, and we may not like it. So it's incumbent on us to come forward, to definitely bare minimum vote, but hopefully run for office, regardless of which political party. And that's one of my big encouragement to young professionals, to young people, is to get involved and be part of the solution, as opposed to just be outside and point to the problems.
Yeah, that's very nice. First of all, enter the system, then try to change it. Otherwise, if you're not a part of it, you can only talk about it. You can't do anything about it. That's very nice. And Yasir, now that we've reached the end of our conversation, honestly, thank you so much for dedicating some time to have this conversation with us. We are very thankful for your presence, and we really wish you all the best, and the team that you work with. And I really hope that you guys make a positive difference, and that world remembers you for that. As far as our audience are concerned, if you like the conversation, please let us know about your feedback in the comments. And until the next episode rolls out, do take care of yourself, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much.